wasn't gonna do that. Hi, my handle's Lord of Emeralds. I like music. You like music too, right? Yeah, you do. We all like music. And some of us people who like music also make music. I am one of those people. So if you're one of those people who likes music and makes music as well, then you're always going to want your music to be as good as all the other music that you've heard in your life that you think is good. Naturally, this is going to lead you down the path of trying to figure out what your favorite musicians and bands used to make the music that you think is so great. Because surely you'll be one step closer to making your music sound amazing if you have the same piece of equipment that your heroes used, right? Just thinking about that means that we seek out a lot of gear that famous people have used. I've got one such example right here today. This is a Marshall Valvestate 100V, otherwise known as a Marshall Valvestate 8100. Now, it's not one of the cool Marshalls, right? You know, it's not an 800, it's not a Super Lead, it's not even a 900 or a JCM 2000. It's a budget model from the 1990s that's mostly transistorized with the exception of one preamp tube. However, if you're in the metal world, then it might command a little bit more respect because it was used on famous records by Prong, Static X, In Flames, and, of course, Death. So when you think of this amp, you think of the Wisconsin Death Trip sound, you think of the Symbolic sound. But I think that the amp has the potential to be more than that. I really want to sit down and see the full extent of what this thing can do. Like, really get it into my own brain and get it into all of your brains. Fill those empty skulls of yours with some tonal goodness. So let's get into it. This is the Marshall Valvestate. Valvestate tones that you've never heard before. Maybe. Hopefully. Let me tell you about the gear that I'm going to be using today first. So this is a guitar. It makes guitar noises. The guitar noises are picked up by the pickups in the guitar. They travel down the cable into a Boss noise suppressor, then into the Valvestate, of course, then from the Valvestate into my Marshall 1960 AV cabinet. This cabinet does not have its original speakers in it. I took all of those ones out because they sounded pretty bad, and I replaced them with 8-ohm vintage 30s of varying types. The one that you're going to be hearing primarily today is a specimen from 2003. I'm recording it with a Shure SM7B. Usually I use the SM7B for voiceover because I think that the visual of a handheld Shure SM7B is funny, but not today. I want to see how it sounds as a cabinet mic because I've never tried before. So that's the gear. Let's get into it. Let's start making some noise. So I'm going to hit you with some disappointment and a little bit of blue balling right at the start by starting off on the Valvestate's clean channel. I know you want the distortion. I know you want all the distortion that this thing can pump out, but I warned you about this. I warned you this was going to be Valvestate tones that you've never heard before. And, you know, I'm not sure how many people have ever thought about the clean channel on a Valvestate, so I want to think about it right now. I've got the gain neutralized. I've got the EQ controls neutralized. Yep, it's a clean tone, all right. Let's see what the EQ controls do. The bass control doesn't do much. You get a little bit less if you move it below noon, but past noon it basically does nothing. It's kind of a similar story with the mid-range control. Like, this is the mids all the way down. This is the mids at noon. And this is the mids cranked. So, you know, not the widest tonal palette coming from these EQ knobs so far. The treble control on this amp anyway, it's kind of scratchy. Dark to the left and bright to the right. And, you know, you can turn the gain all the way up and get a little bit of light overdrive. Man, I am not the right type of person to be demoing these tones, man. I can't improvise to save my life. I can't play a solo to save my life. I can't even play decent blues licks. I feel kind of out of my element on this clean channel. Like, now you know why I play metal. Now you know why I just play big stupid metal riffs, because I don't have the chops to do anything else. If you do have the chops for that, though, and if you have need for a clean channel, even if the EQ controls aren't the most effective, though, you know, the sound's not too terrible. I mean, this is basically the sanitarium tone right here. Like, get a chorus, turn on some reverb, and, you know, you basically got it. hope I was playing that riff right. I haven't played it in a really long time. Did you know that Valvestates have reverb? Yep, this thing has reverb. It's kind of an underwhelming reverb, doesn't last for too long. I'm not sure what technology is used to make the reverb. If you look in the back, there's a little tank-looking thing that looks like it could be a spring tank. It's a really small spring tank, if it is a spring tank. But, you know, it's reverb that exists. Just like this is a clean channel that exists, you know? It's not blowing me away. It's not going to blow away an old-timey Fender, that's for sure. But, you know, I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad that it can act as a platform for cleans, light overdrive, pedal platform. You could also use the effects loop for that. This thing does have an effects loop. I don't think I've ever used the effects loop on this thing. Check this out. You remember the Terra Echo that I briefly demonstrated in the new metal guitar sounds video? I'm going to connect it into the effects loop with these patch cables real quick. It's an effects loop, alright, and it has a wet-dry control, so that's cool. So now that we know about the clean channel, its tone shaping capabilities, or lack thereof, now that we know about the effects loop and the reverb, let's put them to the test with a little jam. How this jam is going to work is I'm going to have the chorus ensemble on for the rhythm guitars, and for the melody guitar, I'm going to have the Terra Echo going on in the effects loop, and I'm going to be using the amp's built-in reverb. So the end result is going to be like, I don't know how you would call it, like indie rock, shoegaze, dream pop. I'm sure that Pitchfork would love whatever I'm about to cook up here. I feel like I should have put like more succulent plants in the background for that jam. Maybe put on a pair of glasses, pair of overalls, put some vinyl records and an Audio-Technica turntable in the back maybe. Like something was happening to me when I was doing that jam. I felt the strangest urge to go and listen to Big Thief and Phoebe Bridgers and Neutral Milk Hotel. Now you're beginning to see another reason why I don't play clean guitar much. Fortunately, clean's not all this channel can do. It's got an overdrive switch. Well, it's actually called crunch, but you know, same difference. Let's go ahead and engage that right now. It's not a lot of gain, even when I have it fully cranked up. I feel like it could be a little more biting. Maybe if I turned up the mids and the treble. It doesn't sound bad. Doesn't sound bad at all. You know, if you want some vintage gain levels, if you will, out of your Valvestate, you know, it can do that too. Sounds pretty good to me in person, but let's go ahead and see what a recording will reveal. Go ahead and do another jam real quick. This one's going to be like a traditional sounding heavy metal-ish jam with a little bit of Iron Maiden influence. I'm also going to go ahead and program the drums for this one. Alright, maybe this wasn't as great of a sound as I thought it was. Under the microphone, it's a totally different story. If I were to use a tone buzzword, I would describe it as like tearing kind of frequencies. I had to actually EQ those out in the full mix because they were like actually unpleasant, and I don't usually EQ guitars that I record. If the tone that I record is unpleasant, then I just change my mic setup or change the controls on my amp instead of trying to fix it in post. But I actually did have to do some EQing this time around, especially on the lead guitars. The tone sounded absolutely horrible by itself, so I had to come up with a really cursed EQ curve in order to make the leads sound nice with everything else. So, maybe this thing isn't the best at doing medium gain sounds, and maybe that's not what you should use it for. But again, it exists, and if you need a medium gain sound, the clean channel on this thing can do it. And now, without further ado, let's move on to the part you've all been waiting for. Yes, we're moving over to the distortion channel. The distortion channel has two levels of gain too. There's an OD1 and an OD2 switch. And I've got the gain maxed out. This thing doesn't actually have the biggest amount of distortion, if you compare it to something like a 6505 or a rectifier, which, I actually think is kind of a good thing. Prevents people from going too overboard with it and, pushing it into the overly saturated territory where there's no dynamics anymore and you lose your pick noise. But this section of the amp does have the most versatile tone shaping controls by far. For starters, the bass knob actually does something. You can turn it all the way to the left, you get less bass and more mids. You can turn it all the way to the right, you get a little bit of a bass boost, but not too much of one. Mid-range control is more effective than the one on the clean channel. Turn it to the left for a scoop, of course. The treble control on the distortion channel is really effective. It gets really dark if you turn it all the way to the left. Piercing if you get it all the way to the right. Still though, I don't think that the distortion on this channel is as piercing as the distortion on the low gain channel for some reason. Don't know why that is. The character is just a little bit more pleasing to me. Hey, it's Editing Emeralds here. Speaking of the distortion across both channels, remember how I said that this is a mostly transistorized amp with just one preamp tube? If you turn it on and you're on the normal channel or the clean channel, it's available to make sound immediately. But if you go over to the boost channel or distortion channel and you turn it on, then you have to allow for some warm-up time before it'll start making sound, which would imply that the single preamp tube that's in this thing is only active when you're on the boost channel. That certainly doesn't do any favors for the reputation of solid-state distortion as sounding less pleasant than tube distortion. And now we come to the most important and the most powerful tone control of them all, the contour knob. How it works is if you turn it to the left, it's pretty much just a low pass. I think this is really cool because most amps treble controls that I've heard act more like a bell or a shelf EQ, where, if you're trying to use it on high gain stuff to like kill fizz, it doesn't really work. Like, if you turn it down low enough to where the fizz is gone, at the same time, your brightness, your aggression in the upper mids is also gone. That's not the case with the Valvestate. You can use the contour knob to effectively kill any fizz that might be going on. And the more you turn the contour knob to the right, the more it acts as another mid scoop. Really serious scooping going on this one. So, if you just turn the contour knob all the way to the right, turn the mids all the way down, turn the bass and treble all the way up, yes, this amp can Pantera. Alright, that's enough of that. There's enough people on YouTube already trying to reverse engineer Dimebag Darrell's guitar tone. I Do not need to add myself to that number. Alright, now that we've gone over to the distortion channel, let's jam on it. This jam is going to be like a 90s groove metal jam. Think like the first Machine Head album or something. I'm going to bring the live drums back. I'm going to get the C tuning going. I'm even going to use a little bit of an overdrive. I'm going to use this Ibanez JD9 Jet Driver. The second I saw this thing at the local guitar store, I had to have it. It was $70. It looks like an orange tube screamer, and it basically is an orange tube screamer, except it has a mid-range control. So, you know, that's cool. Let's jam. That was a pretty good jam. Thought the tone turned out pretty well. Now let's check out how this thing performs as a pedal platform for distortion and stuff. Now I actually have something to compare this thing to this time around. Check it out. This thing is actually a guitar amp. It's a Seymour Duncan Powerstage pedal platform amp. This thing is meant to be a platform for distortion pedals and stuff. So, you know, it's basically like plugging your distortion pedal into the effects return of whatever amplifier you're using. The distortion pedal I'm going to be using is this Black Clouds distortion pedal. This is the most modern sounding distortion pedal that I have. It's super dark. It's super mid-boosted. It also lights up when you play through it. I don't know much about the company who makes it, DSM Humboldt Electronics, I think that's how you would say that. When I look them up on Sweetwater, their most popular product is a pedal-sized amp that is popular with praise and worship guitarists. So I think that's kind of funny. The same company that makes a pedal-sized amp that's used by praise and worship guitarists also makes this really brutal metal distortion pedal. That's kind of cool. All right, let's roll the comparison. Alright, that's kind of what I expected. The Valvestate gives it less mids, it gives it more treble, even with the EQ neutralized. The Duncan pedal platform amp is darker, even with the treble control on it turned up a little bit. You know, this thing has an entire ass preamp section in it, whereas this little thing is just meant to be like plugging your distortion pedal into the effects return of your guitar amplifier, just using it as a power amp. And most distortion pedals tend to sound pretty dark if you plug them into a power amp with no preamp circuitry before it. But you know, I don't think the Valvestate completely kills the tone of the distortion pedal, so let's try some more distortion pedals. Bringing back this monstrosity from the new metal guitar sounds video. I don't think I've changed the settings on this thing since that video. Probably gonna sound super 90s and super solid state. Let's plug it in. Wow, that was pretty gnarly. No mids at all. Let's try all mids. Let's try an HM2. Oh, that's good. That's real good. What about Fuzz? This is the only Fuzz pedal I own. I picked it up just because I thought the name was funny. It's called a Swollen Pickle. I don't know what that was. That was like a mashup of Acid Bath's The Blue and Dream Theater's As I Am. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm not great at improvising. Oh well, at least now that we know that it can act as a pretty good platform for distortion pedals and stuff. So let's do a couple of final jams. I feel like doing a couple this time because I want to do both fuzz and distortion. So yeah, for the fuzz jam, I'm gonna turn on my neck pickup on the C-tuned guitar. You know, gonna do some stoner doom-ish weed stuff, sounds like that, I don't know. For the distortion section, I'm gonna turn on the black clouds. I'm gonna make it sound like really tight and modern, I guess. I'm also just gonna program the drums for these final two jams because recording drums and mixing drums is tough, and I don't want to subject you to any more of my atrocious double kick skills. I know, it's a YouTube video. You demand a visual spectacle. I wouldn't even film playthrough segments for these things if I thought that I could get away with it. So that's why the live drums. You know, I want you to have something exciting to watch, because, like, you gotta break it up, right? You gotta have something more to watch from time to time than just me staring into your soul and talking at you. Sorry, programmed drums for these final two jams. Hit it. Those were a good couple of final jams. The Black Clouds tone ended up being more scooped than I thought it would be. I guess that preamp section of the Valvestate really does scoop it that much, because I swear to God, that pedal has so much more mids than you hear in that clip. The fuzz, you know, I just lean into the scoop on the fuzz. The fuzz scoop I don't mind at all, and it was coupled with the neck pickup. Good couple of jams. So yeah, that's the Marshall Valvestate. You know, it does a ton of things, doesn't do any of them to a legendary level like its cooler Marshall brethren, but it also doesn't do anything really terribly either. And I think it's got a sound of its own. You know, again, not one of the cool Marshalls, but it's cool enough for metal. You know, if you want a gritty, nasty 90s solid state distortion tone, you know, Marshall Valvestate's got you covered, and it can do more than just that. And that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching the video. You know, if you like what you see, then, you know, like the video, comment down below, tell me about your Marshall Valvestate story if you have one. Subscribe if you want to be notified later on when I do videos like this. Again, I don't have an upload schedule. The last video that I put out was like over 2 months ago, I think. But when I do upload, you folks seem to have been enjoying them. The last 3 videos that I've put out have all done numbers beyond my wildest imagination. We hit 50,000 views on the new metal guitar sounds video, which I think is incredible. I know they're just numbers, but they mean a lot to me. So, you know, feel free to go and watch those videos too, even if you've seen them already, and give me some more numbers. And whenever I release a video next, give me some numbers on that one when it comes out. I don't know when it's going to come out. I've got a few ideas for videos cooking, but you know, I make these things as I'm able to. I don't have an upload schedule, and I like not having an upload schedule. I like just making videos about music stuff that I'm passionate about and not being bound to a schedule, just finishing stuff whenever I finish it. I like that. So, until I have another video ready, that's all I've got for you. I'll see you later, everybody. Take care of yourselves.